Allahi wa barakatuh. I hope you guys are well. I'll take my glasses off. I don't need this anymore. I cannot see you, but it's okay.
Well, you can see me.
I can't see anything anyway. Alhamdulillah. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Barefoot Marriage Show. Really sorry we've been off air for a few weeks because we've been very, very busy. Traveling, this, that, and the other, family, kids, it just never ending. But back today, and we're doing it at a different time, 8 p.m. instead of 9. It was 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. We're struggling with that time right now. My wife falls asleep at 9 o'clock, so she's obviously not awake. So 9 p.m. is going to be difficult. 8 p.m. is also a struggle. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is even more struggle because my son has got football and this, that, and the other. But we are here. It's good to be here.
We tried our best. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Henrietta Sawati, and I am sitting next to my husband, Ajmal Masroor, and we are doing our marriage show back again after we have been to wonderful countries on and off, and we are here to talk about racism. A really
explosive topic.
Explosive, but also it's a topic that hasn't actually been explored properly. We don't really recognize when we do it, but we can see it. You know, couples really struggle with, especially intermarriage, interrelational. Interracial marriages.
Interracial marriage is one thing, but even before then, when people are considering marriage, they often face this awful struggle with our community when it comes to different races. So I received a message which I want to share with. I want to show you, if I can. Oh, it's on my phone. Never mind. It's a message that I received from a sister who said, "I'm not from the same race as majority of the communities around which I live. I'm a revert. Our communities were very delighted when I embraced Islam, but I've been struggling to find a marital partner in life. Can you please help? What do I do?" So she came to my talk that I did in Manchester yesterday. And it was astonishing, embarrassing to even see that a sister or even a brother in our community who has embraced Islam is being denied that very basic right to finding a spouse because of their race. What race should they be, and what race would be acceptable to you for you to easily say that your child, your son or your daughter could actually marry? What is the problem? I often ask this question. So race has become an issue in our community. Many parents say no to marriage proposals based on race. What do you make of that, brothers and sisters? What do you make of people denying basic right to our brothers and sisters, our young children, especially those who are getting married, from marrying a person of their choice based on race? What do you say to that?
Well, I was just thinking about, forget about race. You know, people say no to a different village. If people are from a different village of the same community, but not from the same area. So I think we will have an interesting conversation, hopefully, inshallah. So please join us. Give us
your feedback,
ideas, questions, anything you want to share with us. It's all up for grabs. So we are very happy to bring in different viewpoints.
Especially if you have been a victim of racism in a marriage or outside marriage. I will start with the story. I remember a Yemeni boy came to me and said to me, "Brother, I'd like to marry a Bangladeshi girl. I've been considering marrying her, but her father is saying no, simply because I'm Yemeni, different race. And please, can you help?" I went and spoke to the father one day. I took him aside and I said to him, "Why are you saying no? What's the problem?" He said, "Well, firstly, he's from a different race. Secondly, he's black." And I was quite astonished that he would say that. I said to him, "Uncle, can I say something to you with respect?" He goes, "Go ahead." I said, "Have you ever looked at the mirror?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're Bangladeshi, you're black too, you know." "Well, he's a different shade of black. He's blacker, darker than me." Racism has many manifestations. Within the Asian communities, Indian, Pakistani and Bengali communities, that subcontinental mentality, the fairer you are, the more beautiful you are. That's also a type of racism. Your girl or your boy who is darker is treated differently. "Oh, my black girl." I've heard parents say that out of pityness. Why? Why do you use such emotive, such degrading, such insulting language, which would otherwise be seen as a racist statement? Have you ever experienced that yourself? That your parents, your relatives have looked down upon you because you're darker, or given you privileges because you're fairer? You can see my own reaction. I don't like it, but it happens.
Well, it happened in our own families. You know, when we were getting married, my grandmother was she had a very interesting reaction. The first question she asked is, "How dark are you?" Before she has seen you, before she saw you, and she said, "If he's too dark, I'm not going to cook for him."
Oh, is what she said?
You didn't know?
No.
Yes, you did. I told you before.
Can't remember that now.
And then when our children were born, my father's first question was, "How fair is?" Because my father wasn't around and he couldn't wait for my first delivery of our first child. And the first question I heard my mother answering is that she is fair like us.
Whoa, I didn't know that one.
Yeah, you didn't know this one?
I seriously didn't know this one.
Oh, well. So this, I think it's a very, very interesting...
So your father asked your mum, how fair is the baby?
Yeah.
And your mother said, it's as fair as us.
Yeah.
Where does that leave me?
She said she is like, or she's like us, something like that. So she was comparing to her color to...
Or races for that matter.
Well, yes, and...
How did you challenge them?
Oh, I was on the deathbed. I just gave birth. I had hardly.
Oh, you just had that discussion.
But I had a conversation with my dad after that, and unfortunately, my dad never met.
Yes, he passed away sadly.
Yeah, so we never actually had the chance, and I didn't see my father after that, after he left, because the next time I had to travel was to his funeral.
Yes, he died unfortunately.
So I never had the chance to talk to him, but this is a reality for a lot of people, and you grew up with it.
Yeah, of course.
And I think our stories, all of our stories, are very similar. You grew up with it. I grew into it as soon as I became a Muslim. I never had a problem with this, but as soon as I became a Muslim, I started to be called all sorts of names, and I think racism started for me then. So we have
experienced racism.
We all have experience.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Hannah. I have a vivid memory of racism as a child. I remember coming home from school, and my neighbors letting their dog loose on me. I was 5 years old boy, barely able to defend myself, falling in the snow, falling on the ground, cutting myself, running home. Even my home wasn't safe because the British National Party, BNP, racist thugs, they used to throw rubbish at our door, dog mark, break our windows, break our car. It was a regular occurrence. And then to experience that within the Muslim community and see racism inside, oh my God, it just was too much. And I want to talk about it today, racism in marriage. So pre-marriage, when a proposal comes to you, have you experienced anybody in your family who has said, actually, he is from a different race? No. And how did you react to that? How did you feel about it? Let's read a few messages. A lot of messages have come through. Abu Zafar Muhammad says, Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh and family members. Wa alaikum assalam. Jusna Begum says, we get our own people compare our skin tones. That's right, Jusna. Yes. Are you dark? Are you white? Are you fair? Are you red? And they start giving names. Fairer you are, more beautiful you are. The darker you are, more ugly you are. I used to hate hearing that. I used to hate it. My God, I used to hate it with vengeance. And I hear it still in some communities, and it really drives me up the wall. Abu Zafar says, very true, male, female alike, yes. Abdul Mubin says, this is madness. Correct, but it happens.
We don't know what he's referring to.
Well, I think he's talking about racism.
Assuming that he's referring to that.
Abdul Hashim says, Assalamu alaikum, Brother Ajmal. How can collect your marriage book? I need 3 copies. I'll be in London on Tuesday. Give me a message on my Facebook, my dear brother Abdul Hashim. If you message me on my Facebook is my name, Ajmal Masroor. Send me a message on there, and inshallah I'll arrange to give you the book, inshallah. 3 books, no problem. Nargis Jumoon says, Assalamu alaikum. I have experienced it myself. And that racist comment I had was from an elderly lady, and it was in the mosque. I do pray for these people. What did she say? Nargis, tell us, what did she say? Our skin tone, I won't mind. When they compare your kid's skin tone, that is not acceptable. Well, either way, it's not acceptable, is it? Shama Rahman says, no place at all for that kind of thought in this day and age, especially second generation British Muslims. But unfortunately, we are not so quick to change these thoughts, these thought processes. Colonial inferiority complex. White is seen as better. This reminds me of a story. I used to work for Boots.
Right.
You know, Boots, the chemist. I used to work in the pharmacy department, so I used to dispense a lot of medicine. I remember when a Nigerian lady came and said to me, excuse me, young man. I said, yes. Do you have skin whitening cream
Oh my God.
or skin bleaching cream?
Wow.
And I said to myself, what's that? She goes, go and ask your pharmacist. So I went and asked the pharmacist. He said to me, a lot of black people use it to make their skin fairer, whiter, so that they will be respected, they'll be honored, they'll be given better treatment.
And we go to Costa del Sol to get some tan because we want to be brown.
Well, that's the white problem, isn't it?
Exactly. We all have, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. We want to be someone different. And I think that's the whole point of this conversation, is that we always wanting to be someone different and we don't accept. So what we want to talk about today is we want to talk about what happens before marriage, but also what happens during marriage, because it really affects the way we think about each other's cultures. And in a cultural context, you know, we make the mistakes that sometimes unknowingly we hurt people and we hurt our spouse without realizing that, you know, comments that we have picked up, or that we picked up when we were children.
Subliminal
Messaging is there, and it's everywhere. It's in television, it's media. You see it everywhere. You see it how they are reporting the war. You know, this is a very subtle topic which I think we really need to look at, and we need to understand our own patterns of where we come from.
So let's start from the beginning. Before marriage, have you experienced racism? Did somebody propose to you, or did you propose to somebody and you were denied, or your parents said no because you are black, you're brown, they're white, or you're whiter than them, they're darker than you? Did you experience racism in terms of nationality? He's Bengali, he's Pakistani, he's Arab, he's Nigerian, he's Turkish, she is this, she is that, and I'm from a different race. I don't want you to getting married to my family. Have you experienced that ever? Nargis said, as I was married to an African man and took my kids for prayer one day, the lady told me, you marry black man, while pointing at my kids. They are mixed race, Asian, African, since then no more mosque. La ilaha illallah. I'm really sorry, Nargis, that you have not been to the mosque. I would like you to tell me which mosque it was, and I'd like to go and address that mosque and tell them how dare they do that and deprive you of that mosque's company. It's disgusting. It's simply, take it from my mouth. It's disgusting. It's un-Islamic. It's the most degrading thing you can ever do to a human being. So what if the other person is black and you're white? So what? Do they have different blood color? If you cut the skin, it's the same color. How dare our community use such foul, filthy, disgusting language when it comes to describing another human being? Never, ever use nationality, ethnicity, or color, or language, or culture to make yourself feel better and superior, and make the other person feel inferior, or you feel inferior about your own. You are the creation of Allah, and Allah made you in the best way possible. It makes me really mad when I hear this.
I can see that, but maybe just hold on.
I will. Abu Zafar said, isn't nationalism forbidden in Islam? Yes, it is, but we do it.
Yeah.
We do it. Many of us do it. Many of us do it. I deal with marriages every day.
You know, the really interesting thing is that I didn't know about what happens within the Muslim community when it comes to racism. The first time I experienced it, when a new Muslim, I went to Egypt and I stayed there to study. And the proposals I was getting was purely based because I was European. Not on my knowledge.
No.
Not what I knew about Islam. Not how long I have been a Muslim. Not how good or bad or whatever.
They were looking for that was a visa proposal. They wanted to come to Europe.
And it was just everywhere. And I wasn't in a position, I wasn't looking for marriage at that time. But now that when I look back at it, how many people, you know, it's a very tender age of when you are trying to do the right thing, how many people get sucked into it, and how many people don't realize that, and we know now, you know, how many people have come to this country with that purpose, getting a visa, getting whatever, getting European women because they are easy, they are cheaper, they are much, you know, they like exotic, and it's just awful situation.
So Nargis has said, I won't stop praying for these people, Ajmal. God knows the best, of course, but I am not saying about you not praying. I'm saying you don't go to the mosque anymore because of what they said. That is very worrying for me. I'm an imam. That hurts me deep into my heart, right in mine, and I feel so sad. Your children will feel very deprived of that beautiful space called a mosque, a prayer space. And if people have racialized mosques, those people should be exposed. Those people should be named and shamed. Of course, challenged first, and if they don't change their way, name and shame them. Let us really take the bull by the horn, as I say. Racism has no space in Islam whatsoever. When companions were together with Rasulullah and a companion insulted Bilal by his color, whoa, all hell broke loose, literally reprimanded by Prophet ﷺ. Whoa, I can tell you how it was. Prophet ﷺ called Bilal part of his family to just eradicate the racism that they were facing and feeling. So in marriage proposals, have you ever experienced, or are you a parent who has said to your son or your daughter, no, because that person's marriage proposal is from a different race, a person who has come from a different country, a different culture? Have you said no? And if you have said no because of that, you're a racist. Now, challenge me on this. I'm calling you racist. If somebody proposes to my daughter, to us, for my daughter's hand, and they happen to be of a different cultural background, and if I say no because of their culture, then I'm racist. If I say no to them because of their nationality, then I'm racist. If I say no to them because they're black or white or of different color orientation, then I'm racist. It's bottom line. You're racist if that's how you've behaved. Please call me or write to us on our screen. I'd like to hear from somebody who has experienced it. I can give you many stories of girls and boys stuck in a vicious cycle of their families saying no because of the nationality and ethnicity of the boy or girl who is proposing.
And I find it actually quite subtly also disturbing when people say that I would like somebody from the same background just because it makes it easier, or it's essentially what you are saying is that I don't respect your culture as much as I respect my own. I don't respect your ways of doing things as good as mine. And I think it's a very subtle, but it's a very powerful statement. And even though it doesn't sound like racist, and this is what I really pick up on, is it doesn't automatically, you don't think of racism. But if someone says, well, it just makes it easier in terms of language, in terms of dealing with each other, in terms of how we communicate, which I think it's not the whole, but it doesn't define a person. What language you speak, how you communicate, we need to learn about every single person's way of talking. We talk in English in our house, but we communicate in different ways. Yeah, we need to learn.
And you have to.
It's nothing to do with what cultural background you have.
You will have the same problem with the person of the same culture, even if you spoke the same language. It's the human thing, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. We're all made by Allah. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're brown, whether you're Chinese, whether you're African, whether you're Arab, whether you're Turkish, whether you're Pakistani, Bengali, Indian, I don't mind where you're from. I actually don't even care where you're from. The truth is. At the end of the day, we're human. When I started my marriage counseling program, I used to work for Relate. And in my Relate program, I only saw non-Muslims. I have never seen a Muslim in my life in Relate 3-4 years that I was there with them. Guess what? When we started our Barefoot Institute offering people marriage counseling, and I started seeing Muslims with their marital trouble, very soon I understood that human problems are the same. In Relate, the non-Muslims who were having marital troubles, I was seeing exactly the same repeating themselves in the Muslim families. So ultimately, we human beings are the same. You need to go to sleep. I may be of a different culture, I need to sleep. Do you sleep standing? Just because you're white? No. We all sleep lying down. We all need to go to the bathroom. We all need to eat. We all need to freshen up. We all need to brush our teeth. It's all same human features that we all have. Just the skin tone, where I'm born, an accident at birth really. Nationality is determined like that. And you're discriminating your children and your families and building and cancelling relationship because of that. Can you see the shallowness of your approach? It's shallow. It's simply shallow. There was a very nice poster of different brains.
Oh, I've seen that one.
Where the smallest brain was a racist brain. If you're a racist, your brain is very small. I believe that. Because you're not able to reach out to all parts of your brain. So, brothers and sisters, have you experienced it in your life? Like my dear sister said in her life. Have you experienced racism in your marriage? Have you experienced racism before marriage? Have you experienced racism from your in-laws, relatives, friends? Have you experienced racism in your marriage? All those questions we're asking and exploring today. So I've been talking about pre-marriage racism, discrimination based on people's nationality, ethnicity, color, and language. Let's also talk about some of the discrimination that plagues within marriage. Shama has written something. Go ahead.
I think it's telling exactly how deep-rooted this negative attitude of race is, as the viewers have dropped to 4 to 5. This is not important issue enough, perhaps 3 now, so people are dropping.
Yeah, because maybe people are not liking what I'm saying. Maybe people are thinking, I really can't be listening to it. Well, even if you don't, it's okay. It's not a problem.
But also, I think it's a good point to reflect on. Is that I think a lot of times we don't recognize that we are racist ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue. And anyone who says I'm not racist, everybody is racist. And it takes a lifetime to learn. Everybody has biases. And some people think, oh, just because I don't call someone racist language, in a racist language, I'm not racist, therefore I don't need to, learn about this. But it's a lifetime to understand and get to that point where you look at somebody and you don't think about where they come from.
I am so proud of that myself. A friend of mine, an English guy, he married a Bangladeshi girl. And he called me up and he said to me one day, I'd like to put your name as my, on my will. If something happens to me and my wife, I'd like you to take my children. I said to him, why me? Why not your family? He goes, because you're the only person that I know who is culturally neutral. And I've worked tirelessly in my life. I may have some preferences of my own, but I don't impose my preferences in a racial way on anybody. I look at another person. I told my wife earlier on, I look at you as a human being. I don't care what color you are. It makes no difference in my eyes. So if race is not an issue for you, alhamdulillah. If it is, talk about it. Look, come on, write to us. Talk about it. Let's talk about marital racism that takes place. My culture is better than your culture. Have you heard that before?
All the time.
Yeah. I'm Bengali, you're Hungarian. Hungarian culture don't matter anymore. You're Bengali now, you've married somebody, that's not true. My wife is still Hungarian. I've married her, I've not become Hungarian because of that. I've got Bengali culture in myself, of course I have. Both cultures are valid. Both cultures have the right to coexist. And not only coexist and exist, but be given the same value.
But how many times we have heard that women, particularly women, and I was part of that as well, is that we want to make our husband's family comfortable. So we do everything to make them feel more, to make ourselves feel more accepted. And how many times we have seen that women start wearing the cultural dress of the husband, they make the cultural food, they prepare, everything in the cultural way. You remember when I moved to London, we had a Hungarian group of converts, and every single one of us was married to a different culture. And when we got together, nobody was wearing Hungarian clothes. Nobody was thinking about Hungarian food. Everyone's talking about their husband's culture, their husband's versions of Islam. We were all wearing our husband's national clothing, and I think we were just sitting around and we burst out laughing because we realized all of us Hungarians, 12 of us I think, we were sitting around the table and none of us were wearing our own clothes, none of us were
Were you feeling culturally inferior and that's why you had to do this? Or were you being forced into? I have never forced you into wearing.
I don't think there is any force on anyone, but there are these little subtle messages of, oh, she's not Muslim enough.
Yeah.
She's not practicing enough. We will make her understand our culture better so she become a better Muslim. And this is where it really kind of tangles up, because culture and Islam is imposed in a way that the new Muslim is not able to make a difference. So we do the things, and I think I speak for a couple of people, we do the things because we feel that makes us better Muslims. So we can't separate the culture from Islam.
But in marriage especially, you feel obliged because there is an emotional attachment. And that's the thing I'm trying to say. If you're using your culture to dominate your partner, if you're using your race and your language and your ethnicity to impose a particular view or impose a particular value system on your spouse, you're wrong. You can't do that. They also have equal right to their own culture, their own choices in life that they've made. Every culture is Islamic, by the way, unless it contradicts Islam. If it clearly contradicts Islam, then you don't take it. You can be from any culture. All of those cultural expressions and celebrations will be welcomed and embraced by Islam unless it contradicts an essential feature of Islam, such as Tawheed, oneness of Allah, such as the moral principles of Islam, such as anything that is clearly prohibited. If that's a cultural expression, then you're not allowed to do that as a Muslim. But apart from that, everything else is allowed. So if you create this superiority or an inferiority or hierarchical culture based on your cultural dominance in your household, I'm afraid that's also racism, because the other person is feeling suffocated.
Yeah, but there's a very it's a reality in a lot of marriages, because converts, for example, they come with a much less family. If they are the only one who converted, for example, they don't have the same input to a family scenario than someone who marries into the family and meets 27 people around the table every single time they meet. So it's I think it's numbers, but it's also, I think, the subtle messaging of, you are not a good enough Muslim if you don't do this, if you don't eat this kind of food, if you don't behave
That cultural imposition.
Way. Yes, I think it's a very telling sign of, is it culture we are talking about, or is it Islam, or are we just really feeling like my culture is more important, therefore whoever comes to my culture, they have to adopt and I'm not going to change.
Every family has a problem with culture, I know that. So for example, they start calling their white, in quote unquote, members of the family gura, white, or color, black. Even in the expression itself smells of racism as far as I'm concerned. If I'm calling you gura and having a good laugh at it, if I have even subliminal thought of your whiteness as some sort of a mocking term, that's racism. If you're using the blackness that I have and you're mocking me by using the word I'm black or somebody's black, that's racism. Jana Hall has written, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Very important topic, mashallah. So glad you're doing this topic. Thank you, Jana. What has been your experience in our community when it comes to racism in marriage? Have you experienced it and have you seen it? Have you seen your marriage being blocked because of your spouse or somebody you are considering to get married to, and you were told no because they're from a different culture, different color, different language, different ethnicity, nationality? Did you experience that, and did you see the racism that dominated that conversation? What about inside your marriage? Are you in a marriage where you feel culturally inferior? Do you feel culturally suffocated? Do you feel your culture is given no respect, no regard, because your spouse insists that their culture is the only culture, everything else is not acceptable? Are you feeling like that in your marriage? If you are, either of those two environments that we've talked about, message us, inshallah, write to us. Talk to us about your experience, and how do you think we're going to be able to overcome this cultural bias and cultural prejudice or racism that we see in many marriages? What do you suggest? How do we overcome that, Hannah?
Well, first of all, I think it takes tremendous amount of learning and stretching to even entertain the idea that I want to understand something from a neutral perspective. It's not normal. We studied this. We learn about how the brain works, and we like compartmentalizing things, and we like things in boxes, and we need to learn how to extend our capacity to understand things in a complex way, or people in a complex way. We are using the usual prism of, do I like this or I don't like this, and then already we are having two groups. And within the things that I like, what do I like and why do I like them? And we start compartmentalizing a lot of things, and we put ourselves into a very narrow tunnel. And that tunnel behavior, that tunnel vision of looking at another person, I think it deprives of us of so many wonderful things.
Yeah,
and we miss the subtleties, the cultural differences. And if we can't tap into that, we are just running on an old, kind of pattern, like a
hamster on a wheel.
Shahid
Latif says, sorry, Ajmal joined you late. Salaam alaikum, Ajmal. Nice to see you. Nice to have you, Shahid Latif. Thank you very much for joining us. We're talking about racism in marriage. Do you know anything about it? Do you know anyone who has experienced it? And if you know, tell us about it, of course. Share your thoughts and your ideas. Why do we see racism in our society still? I remember when I was younger, I said to an Arab guy, I'd like to marry your daughter. I was direct. He said, no, you can't marry my daughter. Why not? You're not an Arab. Simply on my face. I remember.
Lucky me.
I remember that kind of, and I was testing the water. I remember going into a family, a Pakistani family. I still remember a proposal came to me. I went to meet the father, and the father said, no, I'm not getting my daughter married to a Bengali. That deriding way of speaking, I remember those days when people were speaking about race in that way. It was awful. It was horrible. Arabs won't marry non-Arabs. Bengalis won't marry Pakistanis. Pakistanis won't marry Bengalis. Anyone who married white English or white European were looked down upon as if there is something wrong with them. Even when people hear it now, they say, oh, what happened? What do you mean what happened? I've married a human being, a person who I want to stay with, I want to be married to. Why would you be racist in your thoughts, even if it's subliminal? We're here to challenge you. And we're here also to hear your challenge. Racism, unfortunately, has its tentacles deep in our family lives. We see in our families giving priorities on people. An example, if you go to the Middle East, if you are white European, you get all the privileges in the world. But if you are from Asia, if you are black and African, you are in trouble. Racism is not, we have not eradicated racism from the Muslim society.
We haven't eradicated from anywhere. I think it's just more subtle, it's more sophisticated the way it's presented, and it's a more twisted way of doing it, but I think it runs very deep.
Yeah, and we want to address racism in marriage. Have you experienced racism in your marriage? Have you experienced racism before you got married because you were considering somebody and a proposal was given or you had received, your parents or their parents said no because of the race? I know you are embarrassed in talking about it. It does happen. Happens even now. I know I've been told by people, please brother, can you keep it to my race only? Why? It's better. Why is it better? I was told by somebody recently, can you find a boy for my girl? My girl is just graduated. I said, okay, what kind of a boy are you looking for? Please, preferably from my own culture. Why? Because it's better. I said, what do you mean better? Your culture is better. He said, well, it's more familiar, it's easier to deal with. Immediately you're saying the other culture isn't worthy of your respect. Immediately what you're doing is you're shunning the other culture. You're making assumptions that people of the same culture will stay together longer. Well, it's not true. Divorces happen even within the same culture.
I think Sham is asking a similar question. Is that could it be that people are just afraid of something they don't know? It's easier to stick to your own. Well, according to our experience and according to statistics, I don't think it is actually to stick to what we know, because divorce happens within the same cultural background marriages. It happens, marital arguments, conflicts, they arise whether you are from the same culture or from a different thing. I think what people don't understand, we spoke about intercultural marriages, and there are different challenges. I grant anyone who says that there are no different challenges. There are different challenges to intercultural marriages, but there is something that you will, if you don't agree, you will argue. If you have a conflict, you will have your own way of doing it. It doesn't matter if you're from the same country or from a different continent, you will argue in your own way, and you still need to learn how to manage that conflict. If food is an issue, you will be arguing with someone who's from your same culture.
Of course.
You're not arguing about food because you're from different culture. You're arguing because you have your own way. So I think it's really down to the point is that it's not what is familiar is going to keep us together. I think actually what is different is
and it makes it exciting. If the other person is different to you, and if you have got the broad-mindedness and open-heartedness to be able to explore that person's culture, you will love it because you're really learning something new.
It's funny because I said I never wanted to marry a Hungarian.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. I don't
maybe
know.
You thought
I was racist.
Because maybe you thought grass was greener on the other side.
No, but I just never felt that it's a culture that I wanted to stay with for the rest of my life. I wanted to broaden my horizons, and I think I very clearly I said to my mother, I was about 15, and I don't think I will marry a Hungarian.
And are you glad you didn't?
Oh, of course I am.
You can't say anything different now. You're married to me.
Too late.
But hasn't it been an enriching experience getting to know a very different culture, a very different bunch of people, their quirks, cultural quirks, getting to know their habits, funny ones, good ones, bad ones. I remember having a good laugh over some of the Hungarian great culture. I remember going into the house and somebody picked up the phone and they said, see ya, and put the phone down and said, hello. I couldn't stop laughing. I said to you, what is this? You pick up the phone and say, see ya, which means see you, as far as I'm concerned. And you're putting the phone down and you say, hello. I don't understand. Then I found out it's, of course, a cultural expression. You guys had, you have some strange dietary culture, for example.
So do you.
Of course. But for me, it was very strange when I saw you eating bread with goose fat.
You can't say these things in public, what I eat.
No, not you. I'm talking about culture.
There are some secrets we are not ready to talk about.
Believe you me, I found them fascinating on one hand, but also strange. But it wasn't uncomfortable for me. I don't have to eat it. You eat it, I'm happy. Go ahead, enjoy. It's like within Bangladeshi culture, I won't eat shutki, for example.
I won't either.
That stinky fish that Bangladeshis eat. Or I won't eat garam masala-laden food from Pakistani home. I can't do it. I'm sick afterwards. I won't. That's my choice. That's not because of the culture. It's not because of the race. It's just that it just doesn't agree with me. But I'm very happy to facilitate somebody wanting to eat that. So when we used to have iftar parties in our house in Ramadan before COVID, we used to have people bringing their own dish, and everybody brought their own cultural dish. And people got to try different varieties. In one of our iftars, we had 80 people here. And we had 80 different dishes, or at least that variety, huge variety, and people got to try different things.
I had a French friend of ours who came with a family, or 2 children and the husband and the wife. The wife is my friend, and she said, I love Muslims. I just love that I come to your house and I try the whole world because everything is on the table. She actually tried every single dish that we had on the table.
Isn't that amazing? Allah says that in the Quran, that, oh humanity, we've created you in different colors, different nationalities, different races. Why? لِتَعَارَفُوا, so you'll get to know one another. Instead of becoming racist in your marriages, inside marriage, before marriage, you get to know each other. What an amazing thing. I travel the world. I know Shahid Latif has just said congratulations on my Pakistan trip. Yes, I love going to different countries. That's how you learn. That's how you broaden your horizon, as Hannah said earlier on. That's how you become enriched in your own life. In your marriage, you become enriched. Try a different variety. Don't be so stuck in your own cultural ways. You will learn very soon the plurality that you bring home is enriching. It's very enriching. I'm so glad Allah has given me that opportunity. But if you're suffering in a marriage where racism is prevalent, in a household where racism is prevalent, or a marriage that you want to have but you can't have because your parents are preventing you from getting married to somebody just because that person is from a different culture, different nationality, speaks a different language, talk to us. Give us a call. Or in fact, drop us a line, an email. If you need help and counseling, support, coaching, mediation, talk to us. We do that all the time. Often speak to parents, try and help them to find a middle ground. Brothers and sisters, don't suffer in silence. It's very important that we eradicate racism from our existence. Never, ever should you tolerate racism, whether it is subtle racism or on-your-face racism.
And you can only change it with your own behavior. I think this is one of the things that the next generation has a responsibility to do, is to really understand that if we don't stop our parents' behavior, we are going to, whether we like it or not, we are going to pass it down.
Yeah.
Somehow, in its subtle ways, it is going to come in. And we really have to be very conscious that we don't pass any of these things to our children. I know that education is very different today than it was before. There's a lot more awareness. Young people are very articulate about, they are a lot more clued up than we were when we were growing up. So that's a good thing that's been happening. But there is something particularly about relationships, that relationship is a ground to learn about how to unlearn our own biases and our own racism. Because if you put your hand on your heart, you have some observations and you have some reservations about some cultures.
Of course.
So do I.
We all do.
And I think it's
But that's not a culture. It's my personal reservation about a particular behavior within a particular context. You can't call that the whole culture.
No, I understand that, but even that, we need to be very clear of not to. And I know I have some of those prejudices too. And we need to learn. The only way that we can learn is that we understand where that narrow-mindedness is coming from, and then learn about our own selves, so we can actually meet anyone without looking at what culture it is, what language they speak, what food they eat, what kind of clothing they have, and essentially what color their skin is, because that's how it boils down. We start off with, there is a slight cultural difference, but actually it can go into a full-blown racism.
There's a very, very powerful story from the life of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ about a person called Julaybib. Julaybib was a short, dwarf type of a guy, wasn't very handsome, wasn't very good looking in the conventional sense of the word. And Prophet ﷺ went to a family and proposed marriage for Julaybib with a very beautiful girl from that family. And the father and the mother was very excited that the Prophet has brought a marriage proposal. And they said, "O Prophet of Allah, we're very honored that you brought a marriage proposal. May we ask who it is?" And Prophet ﷺ said, "It's Julaybib." They all almost fell off their chairs. "What? Julaybib, that ugly dwarf? We're not going to get our daughter married to her. No way." Not married to him. No way. That's the conversation they started having. Prophet ﷺ couldn't convince them and he left. The daughter was listening to this conversation from her room. So she came out and said to her parents, "Mom and Dad, did the Prophet of Allah ﷺ bring a marriage proposal for me?" "Yes." "And was it that he brought a marriage proposal for me by the guy, for a guy called Julaybib?" "Yes." "And you said no because he's short, he's dwarf-like, he's not good looking?" "Yes." She said, "That's very wrong. You can't do that. I would like to marry that guy. If Prophet has brought the marriage proposal, go ahead and get me married to that guy." Parents were very astonished, but the girl was very adamant. They got married. Julaybib got married to this wonderful lady and they were together for a while. There was an attack on Medina and Muslims had to go out and defend Medina and attend a battlefield. And in that war, Julaybib died. And Prophet ﷺ came out looking for Julaybib. He looked everywhere. He found Julaybib's dead body on the floor. He picked it up with his own hand. And he's carried the body of Julaybib everywhere. And he said, "Julaybib is part of me and I'm part of Julaybib." Now, brothers and sisters, Prophet did everything possible to eradicate racism, embracing Bilal as his own, giving Zayd bin Haritha a space in his house, even though he was a found and a lost boy who was looked after, who has stayed with the Prophet. Khabbab was of a different race and color. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's nanny, Ayman, whose name is Barakat actually, Baraka, original name, she was black, Abyssinian. And after his own mother, Amina, who died on a travel to Yathrib to Medina, Amina handed over Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who was barely 6 years old, to this black lady called Ayman Baraka. And Ayman Baraka made a promise that she will look after the Prophet all the way. And Ayman lived with the Prophet all the way. Even after Prophet became an adult, got married, the age difference wasn't too big. She was still in the Prophet's house. And then Prophet insisted that Ayman should get married and settle down. And she did try, but that marriage didn't last. She came back to the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. And how did he treat her, black woman? As his own mother. Look at the way Prophet dealt with people of different color. And yet in our communities, in our societies, especially in the Asian communities, racism before marriage, racism within marriage, and our open racism to people of different color is just staggering. It mind boggles. It's just baffling. So brothers and sisters, if you think racism is existing in our societies, marital conversations, please talk to us. Write to us. What about you? What do you think? How do we eradicate it? Shama says, how does one deal with elders who absolutely refuse their son marrying a girl of a different culture? For example, can the son go on against their elders? Is that allowed? Emotional blackmail and other means from elders to stop a union. Well, Shama, let's make it very clear. In Islam, the choice to marry a person is the person who is getting married. It's their choice. I have no right as a parent, as a father, to impose my choice on my children when it comes to marriage. I can tell them that I'd like you to get married to a Muslim. I'd like you to get married to a good person. I'd like you to get married to a person with good character and integrity. I'd like you to get married to somebody who would be productive in your life and beneficial. I'd like you to get married to somebody who does not have a bad record or a track record. You can make those requests to your parent or to your children. And you train them up to grow up to understand that when they go out looking for a spouse or when they meet somebody, if they don't meet the basic human criteria, they should not pursue this. You can teach all of that to them. Ultimately, it's their choice. They can say yes or no. So parents, Shama, if the parents are listening, you cannot force your boy or your girl to marry somebody against their choice. In fact, if you do, forced marriage is known as a null and void marriage according to Islam. There's a story of a girl who was forced into marrying her cousin by her father. She complained to the Prophet. Prophet said, I will declare your marriage null and void because you've been forced into a marriage. She said, oh Prophet of Allah, don't nullify my marriage. I somehow have become happy. But I want you to tell the world. And Prophet made it very clear. Any marriage that is done against the will of the boy or the girl is called forced marriage. And forced marriage is null and void. So you can't stop your son or your daughter from getting married to a person who is good in character, good in Islam, good in their morals and manners and their behavior. You can't stop them just because they're of a different culture. You can't do that. That's not allowed in Islam. You can't stop them because they're a different color. You can't stop them because they speak a different language. You can't stop them because they're of a different nationality or ethnicity. All of those behavior would be termed as racist behavior. You can't do that. So
and if you are the one who is participating in this, it's your responsibility to move away from emotional blackmail.
Yes.
It's not your responsibility to tell your parents how to move away from it. It's you who has to take a stand. You have to decide that in this case, I am not going to be a victim of emotional blackmail, and I'm going to make my own decisions.
So a parent could turn around and say, I'll kill myself if you don't. Go ahead. I would turn around and say to the parents, you go ahead, kill yourself if you want.
Okay, well, this probably is...
I'm just saying.
Can be taken quite literally.
No, but I'm saying this very simply because in Islam...
that's what parents are saying.
In Islam, a parent who's saying that, what are they saying? Prophet ﷺ said, suicide is a major crime. Why would a parent use a haram act to blackmail somebody? Why would they do that? If these parents are claiming to be Muslims, what happened to their Islamness when they're using something so haram to say, unless you listen to me, I'm going to have a heart attack? What? Heart attack is not determined by the girl you marry or boy you marry. No, heart attack is determined by your bad habits, your bad diet, your smoking habits, your cholesterol, all of those things. That's what causes heart attack. Heart attack is not because, oh my God, I'm a Bangladeshi family and my daughter is getting married to a Pakistani, I'm going to have a heart attack. It doesn't happen like that. Irrational. So don't fall a victim of being, don't be a victim of emotional blackmail. Be kind and polite to your parents and say really nicely, parents, I'm really sorry, but that's not allowed in Islam. What you're saying is not allowed in Islam, and I'm not going to fall victim of what you're saying. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to walk away. Really sorry, can't do it. Can't go down this route. I know it's easier said than done, but you've got to stand. If you don't stand, how are you going to break that vicious cycle of blackmail? Blackmail by nature is a crime. You know that, don't you? Blackmail by nature is a crime. If somebody is blackmailing you using race, that's not only a blackmail, it's also racism. Double crime. We need to really deal with this, brothers and sisters. So give us a call. Sorry, not give us a call. Write to us if you have got a question. You can get in touch with us by emailing us. What's our email address?
info@barefootinstitute.com. You can also go to our website at www.barefootinstitute.com. You can reach us on Facebook. So we are available for any of these conversations to continue if you wish. And also, we would be very happy to facilitate any kind of conversations which Ajmal has done previously with young people.
And parents.
Between young people and parents who don't seem to see eye to eye about, who their younger person wants to marry. So this is a conversation that has to go and continue in our community. I always say to young people is that it's your responsibility to break a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Old people, let's face it, some of the views, some of the cultural things that people have been living with, they may not change ever. Most likely they will not change.
They won't change, perhaps.
But young people have a responsibility to break the vicious cycle of being racist within our own community.
But parents would change. For example, my parents, they had no choice. All their children married in different cultures. Eventually, my parents have accepted that my family, our family, is going to be the United Nation of the world. Different cultures will be in there. It's not a problem. It took them a little while, but they've got used to it. Our other extended family members who may have made comments before, they don't say anything anymore because they've realized it's waste of our time, waste of everyone's time making comments about it because we won't listen to it. We'll just ignore them because we have risen above the cultural and racial barriers that we have artificially created. We are all human. We're part of one race called human race. And that's the most important thing. I think your friend Jana Hall has written a lot. So do you want to read that?
Sure. Racism is a very ignored and ugly behavior, and it's the first sin. They think they gave their charity, pray their salah, have been to Hajj, done Umrah, got big house, son is daughter's nice family. Little did they know that they're so racist. They were racist in their views of people. These ugly traits will carry on. Unfortunately, we need to educate our younger generation not to be racist in their mindset. And yes, eradicate racism. I agree. Love your both points. Jilabi's story is very touching. Yes, indeed.
And also other stories you'll read at the time of Rasulullah on racism. Whoa, Prophet was very, very firm, very firm. He said in his last sermon, no Arab has superiority over non-Arab, no black has superiority over non-black, or white have superiority over black. He just eradicated, destroyed any notion of racism from the society instantly within his own rank and file, and made a universal declaration on those basic human rights that we are all born with. So in marriage, never tolerate racism, never. Because if you tolerate racism, you will remain a victim of racism for the rest of your life. Because one culture will dominate the other, and that's not Islam. Cultures must coexist together. Separate, yes, different, definitely, but coexist. Coexist side by side as equal. Why should your husband's culture be more important than yours? Why should it be? It should be equal. If you have a personal preference, that's your personal preference. Don't impose it on anybody else. I love your mother's food, for example. You don't cook it, but I love your mother's food. Because I think cultural expressions through food is beautiful. All of us have to enrich ourselves by entertaining diversity at home, by living the diversity that we are supposed to. It's not a tick box exercise in Islam. It's about realizing it in your day-to-day matters. It's about manifesting it in your culture, in the way you train your children. I hope and I pray our children realize that actually we're not from different cultures.
Inshallah.
And they're combined together. They are very proud of their identity, alhamdulillah. They don't have an issue with identity, because
Not yet.
well, it's the time to have it. We have taught them to be proud of their Muslimness. We have taught them to be proud of their Britishness. We have taught them to be proud of their parents' origin, Bangladeshi and Hungarian backgrounds. We have taught them to be proud of all cultures of the world, because all cultures of the world deserve our equal respect.
And my message to those of you who have been thinking about this and maybe even facing some of these issues, and you know that this is something that you have to work on. The message is that it's not in theory. Don't talk about being accepting and being wonderfully embracing of other cultures in theory. Do it in practice.
Yes.
If you know somebody, go and have a conversation with that person who could do with a little bit of opening of their mind about, what would it look like if you even entertain the idea of marrying somebody from a different culture, especially if you're surrounded by people who tell you otherwise. Don't just think about this. Go and put it in practice. Challenge somebody. Try to open their minds, because it's also a way for us to open our minds about something that we have been, not quite in balance with.
Or ironed out. Let's advertise some of our books, ladies and gentlemen. 10 Steps to Getting Married and Staying Married. If you haven't bought the book yet, please do. It's available on our website, barefootinstitute.com/bookstore. And your book?
And my book called Heart Smart, which is a little bit different. It's a lot to do with self-exploration, understanding your brain, neuroscience, and emotions in emotional intelligence. We do a couple of things, and we've got a lot of things coming up that we can advertise. So one of the things that we are doing is I teach emotional intelligence for couples. It's one of my favorite things to do. So if you are a couple who want to pick up maybe a couple of tips and tricks about emotional intelligence, reach out to me. I will be very happy to share with you what I have been teaching other couples.
And
you have courses coming up?
I have, in the month of Ramadan, I've got two courses coming up at 2 different times. One is called 30 Rules of Life. You journey with me through the Quran, and you pick up on 30 basic moral and ethical parameters that Allah has laid out. You learn about them. It's a transformative program. It enables you to think differently, openly and widely, and change your life, inshallah. Every day for an hour. There will be 2 time slots, so people of different time priorities can join. One is at 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock, 1 hour, and there is another same program in the evening between 6 and 7. I'll also be doing Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's life called Surviving and Succeeding in Life. Inshallah, it's going to be every Saturday between 3 and 4 for an hour. And again, both of those things you'll find advertised via my Facebook and on our website very soon, inshallah. But in the meantime, you can go to 30rulesoflife.com. There is a separate website where this course is being advertised already, 30 Rules of Life, inshallah. If you want to, of course, you can. And I'd invite you to get in touch with us if you need marriage counseling, coaching, mediation, if you need help and support for your own issues, relationship issues, all sorts. From deep sexual dysfunction to relationship dysfunction, we deal with all issues. So please get in touch with us, info@barefootinstitute.com. We'll be very happy to help and support you in your journey and in your challenges.
And hopefully we will be back next week.
Inshallah.
I don't think we have any troubles coming up, so we will be back next Sunday. So keep an eye out on our advertising for our next program. We will come up with an interesting topic.
Inshallah.
Or if you have anything particular you would like us to discuss, please drop us a line and we will pick that up.
Inshallah. And we will also give you a definitive time of when we are doing the program. Keep your eyes open on our Facebook, inshallah. It may go in the morning. It hopefully will be in the morning for everybody's convenience. Thank you very much again, everybody. May Allah bless you. Sleep well, rest well. From myself and my good wife. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Have a lovely week and see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam wa rahmatullah.